officer. Our office has been working with the grand jury for a number of months now. I would characterize our relationship as a very positive one as we've worked through many issues. We have been working on clarifying the particular issues that's before you in the ordinance change, but I would be remiss if I didn't disclose to the board some of the other information that's contained as background in this item. The grand jury, in spite of the best efforts of some programmable changes that they have made in discussions with our office, are currently projected to go over their budget for this fiscal year. And I think just as a summarization of the issues, I think there is a philosophical difference between our office and the grand jury about how much money should be made available to them for their resources. We do recognize the grand jury's role in the county and some of the legal requirements. However, much as we have discussions with the sheriff's office about how much funding we can give to law enforcement and how much funding we can give to our various social programs, we're limited in how much money we can provide to the grand jury for doing their operations. There simply is not enough money to share with everybody that wants a piece of the pie. So we gave the grand jury what we felt was the same treatment that we gave all other county departments. We did not grant them full funding for what they requested, in spite of the fact that historically they've been demonstrating that they have spent more in their budget than we have given them each year. It is an ongoing problem and will be continued to be until we have resolution on this funding issue. This particular item before you today, we have worked with County Council and the grand jury, and County Council has had discussions with the presiding judge. We're really at the point where we have a philosophical difference between how much funding the county should provide for the grand jury budget. The grand jury foreman is here today to address those issues as part of the discussion and has made available to the board a packet of background materials. So, Mr. Chair, I'll turn the time back over to you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Finley Williams. I'm the current foreperson of the grand jury for this term. As Mr. Mitchell has said, I have presented to you a copy of the presentation I'm about to read to you, along with a letter that I addressed to Mr. Mitchell back in September. To that end, thank you for this opportunity to address the board concerning the grand jury budget and proposed ordinance on jurors' fees and reimbursement. The grand jury is a state-mandated watchdog for local and county government. The jurors perform a necessary function, yet modest jury fees have remained unchanged for more than 20 years. In fact, the amended ordinance before you reflects the status quo in all but one respect. The only substantive change from the historic practice is a confirmation of the board's recent approval of limited overnight stayers who reside more than 30 miles from Ukiah. To date, only coastal jurors have elected to stay overnight, and their lodging and dinner costs have been essentially equal to the cost of the round-trip mileage. The resulting increase in productivity has been noteworthy. Over the years, actual grand jury expenses have varied, largely depending on the distances traveled by the 19 jurors selected for each panel and the mileage reimbursement rate. It is virtually impossible to accurately forecast travel costs until after jury selection each July. Travel costs are also influenced by the location of agencies under investigation, but the main variable is the distribution of jurors around our large county. I believe you are all aware the grand jury has exceeded the line item for travel in this year's fiscal budget. This was inevitable given that the base budget did not factor in the increased mileage rate and the large number of jurors who are traveling to Ukiah from the coast or North County on a regular basis. The same situation in the prior year contributed to a $36,000 overrun and an actual per juror cost of about $7,200. Since then, the mileage and reimbursement rate has increased more than 15%, from 50.5 cents to 58.5 cents a mile. Nevertheless, the planned budget for the current year allowed only about $5,200 per juror. Several times prior to the acceptance of the final county budget on September 16, 2008, we advised the CEO's office of the inadequacy of the proposed budget. I thought that communicating this inadequacy to the CEO's office was the same as presenting the grand jury's needs to the Board of Supervisors. I have since been informed that budget reports should have been made directly to you, and in the future I hope that such will occur. In my conversations with the CEO and his staff, I noted the grand jury had exceeded its budget for travel in each of the last 2 years, and it would be illogical to assume that travel would cost less with essentially the same distribution of jurors. I prepared and sent to the CEO a letter prior to adoption of the final budget on September 16, 2008, outlining the steps that the 2008-2009 grand jury had made to contain cost. A copy of that letter was attached to this presentation and should be before all of you at this point. Some of our cost-saving strategies have worked well. Others have not. Despite our concerted efforts to use juror time effectively and efficiently and to limit our long-distance travel, the fundamental fact remains that travel costs are directly proportional to the success of the courts in recruiting a representative panel of jurors. The current budget has available funds left primarily in the line item for meeting cost. I anticipate that we will use all of this line item as intended. Thus, as I anticipated, additional travel funds are needed to complete this year's works. I ask you to bear in mind these facts when discussing the budget for the next fiscal year when responding to our current request. Thank you so much for your attention to these matters. If you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer such.
Any questions? Mr. Williams, I understand the travel, and but I have to tell you this. It kind of upsets me when the grand jury criticized me because I travel 80 miles to get to here if I come from my home residence. And in the wintertime, not only is it about 25 miles of dirt road, but in the wintertime, I have to provide my own snow removal to do that, but yet I was criticized by the grand jury for staying in Willits on some nights, and I actually, because I didn't want to, make an argument, I actually refunded the county about $3,500 in travel, which the grand jury criticized me for charging the county because I was staying in Willits and not going home every night, so this issue of 30 miles, to me, that's a piece of cake. I just wanted to, that whole process was kind of frustrating to me, and I just wanted to convey to you my concerns.
Thank you, Supervisor Pinchas. I acknowledge your confirmation, your presentation on that. I would like to note that when we're talking about the budget, and we're talking about planning for a budget and how we're going to come up with the cost for the grand jury for its travel portion of the line item budget, that realistically making these decisions prior to knowing the makeup of the grand jury in terms of location of the individuals is a bit premature and going to lead to inaccuracies and overruns such as we're seeing here. For example, this year we have 5 jurors that come from the coast. The average cost of round-trip travel for those people is $60 per day. 5 times 60 is $300. Since we have set up the schedule so that these people will be coming in approximately 2 times a week, that runs to about $600 a week travel cost just for the coastal jurors. For the jurors from the North County, there's 3 of us out of the Willits area. Our cost is about $25 per day, which makes $75 total, for then a total of $150 a week. So now we have $750. The remaining 11 jurors who come out of the Ukiah area cost about $150 a week total. So out of the 3 components of our jury this year, we come up with $900 a week worth of travel cost. If we assume that 50 weeks out of the year there will be travel, that comes out to a beginning base budget of $45,000. Our beginning base budget in this budget was $15,000. This was doomed to failure before it started. And what I'm hoping to do with my presentation today is alert y'all to this fact so that next year when the budget process begins again, that since all 5 of you will be here at that point, you are aware of this before the discussion starts. Had I realized that I needed to be in here in July and August talking to y'all directly and talking to the board as it constituted then directly about this problem, I would have done so. I had thought that by speaking to the CEO's office, I was speaking to your administrative officer, the person